This is a response to YouTube's Nutnfancy's revolver porn video. This is a response, not a rebuttal. I really enjoy Nutnfancy videos, his gear reviews, his adventure videos, the gun review, politics not so much, but the other stuff is great. I'm also a revolver enthusiast, and I decided to make this response. Gear check. So the odds that I'm actually going to run into Nutnfancy and have him do a gear check are pretty remote. So we'll do one here. This is no shit what I had in my pockets today. First of all is my multi-tool, which I don't always carry, but I had to do some work. My other hobby is amateur astronomy, and when you're an amateur astronomer in Ohio, you need to have another hobby. So shooting is my other hobby because the weather is always very bad here. Something you might not think of if you are in Utah. I've got a Leatherman Wave around here too. I bought all kinds of crap from watching your program. But this one is a lot lighter. This is the Deluxe Tinkerer. It's the one with the some actually pretty respectable pliers. Small but very strong. It has that, and it has a Phillips head screwdriver instead of the corkscrew. That why would you ever need that? It has one. Also, here's the 4.7s. Oh, which one is this? It's the mini, the one that, not the CR123, the other one, CR1 I think it's called. It's good for the pocket. This thing's been through, I think this thing's been through the washer and dryer like 3 times. It still works fine. And what I like about it is you can use it one-handed. There's, low, medium, high. So that's that. I usually have this on me. And I usually have this or something like it. This is my favorite one. That's the Mannix 2, again, recommended by Nutnfancy. And again, what I like about it is, I don't need to open things with only one hand or activate them with only one hand. I mean, I've got 2 of them, but it's nice, like, especially if you're driving or if your hands are, like, if you got a bunch of stuff in your left hand, it's nice to be able to operate it one-handed. And, of course, you can. That is just such a nice knife. Great grip, great size. My hands are a little biggish, so I like a big handle. And you know what they say about a guy with the big hands, right? Wears big gloves. Huge. But what's also nice about it is that it also closes with one hand. In your video, I think, Obligation of Carry, you said that carrying a firearm is an individual choice and that there are many valid reasons not to do it. Well, I agree with you. This, however, I do have one next to my bed, and if I had to carry in a pinch, this is what it would be. Yep, more stuff I bought because I watched your program. I just got this recently. This, of course, is the Walther PPK. Whoa, it is not a PPK. This is not the James Bond gun, although it really should be. This is the Walther PPQ Mark II. And as you can see, it is in FDE, known to the rest of the world as tan. I've got a Walther 20-round magazine for it. 20? No, it's 17. I'm sorry. I've got a Beretta too, and I've got some extended 20-round magazines for that. I was confusing them. Oh no, a Beretta, something else you don't like very much. Oh well. Oh, and yeah, I've safety checked all the firearms I'm going to show you. This is the bedside gun, so the magazine is loaded. I've got, looks like Hornady critical defense in there. That's good because if, on the extremely unlikely event that I have to stop an intruder, I want to stop the intruder and not my neighbors, unless they're the same person. There's FDE. For some reason, they can't make the back straps FDE. And this is the TLR4. It's the small Streamlight lamp with the laser pointer. And the reason I have the laser pointer is because my wife is not a gun person. She never shoots, and I want to have her at least have some way of aiming it if she had to. And the flashlight, because for some reason these things always seem to happen at night. So that's my gear check. That is my first revolver. On the right, the Super Single 6 stainless with 6.5-inch barrel. I added those Hogue checkered walnut grips and the high vis front sight. It's shown in this picture with a Model 41 Smith & Wesson and the 22 Magnum rimfire cylinder. Here are those Hogue Cowboy grips again, walnut. I sold this thing because, you know, it has the small 19th century grips and a 6.5-inch barrel. It made it very front heavy. I don't like front heavy guns, and that's a theme we're going to return to later in the video. So I ended up, I had it for a long time, and I sold it along with its factory holster. So I don't have this one anymore. The first really good centerfire revolver that I bought, because I had the single 6, it was a 686. It was a Christmas present for my wife in '05. And I've had the following. I mean, it's pretty much a stock model, except I have replaced the grips. I still have the Hogue rubber grips. They work just fine. But since this is, in principle, a fighting pistol, well, you know, I mean, the rubber grips catch clothing. This is a high-vis sight, but the light tube is cased in resin or whatever that is, so it's very tough. You're not going to break that pipe. This is the Plus model and the 7 chambers. The 7 chambers in the cylinder. I showed my grandfather a photo of this when I went back to visit him in Massachusetts before he died, of it showing this angle here. And I said, notice anything odd about this revolver chambering, about this revolver cylinder? He said, anything odd? And he looked at it for a minute and couldn't figure it out. And I said, it's literally odd. And then his eyes like perked up and he says, oh, that's not fair. And laughed, you know. Did I fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, it doesn't matter. It's a 7-shot revolver. But anyway, it's everything that everyone says they are. The trigger, especially now after I've been shooting it since, Christ, was it 12 years now? It is just super smooth. It's not light in double action, but it's not really heavy either. I'm sorry, I don't have a scale. It's just super smooth with a clean break. Single action is just unbelievable. I mean, you just have to look at that trigger to set it off. And it's just so light single action. You hardly have to put any pressure at all. I usually shoot it double action. It's got this, I'm not going to pull out a key and activate it, but it's got the integral lock. A lot of people bitch about those. Oh, it's a consumer safety measure. You know, we don't need that. If we want a trigger lock, we'll just put one on. Well, that's true, of course, but it doesn't really get in the way of anything. And if you don't want to use it, don't use it. A full underlug, except for weight, I'm not really clear what the advantage of that is. I don't mind the full underlug. It's very well balanced because it's the 4-inch model, or 4.2 or whatever it is. Smith & Wesson revolvers. This is the L frame, of course. They are made of high temperature forged stainless steel. The trigger and the hammer are case hardened. It also has what's called a rebounding hammer. This is stuff that the dealer showed me before I bought it. And what that is, well, alright, you pull the double action, pulls the hammer back, and then releases, and look how far into the frame it is. Can you see that? I hope so. That's the firing position. And it'll only reach that firing position if you pull the hammer all the way back. Now, if you release the hammer, trigger, I mean, if you release the trigger, the hammer comes back about 1/8 of an inch. And now there's a space between the hammer, which does not have a firing pin on it, and the firing pin, which is in here. And there's something separating them. It's kind of like the reverse of the Ruger transfer bar. In the Ruger, you need the transfer bar to make the connection. In the Smith & Wesson, the bar prevents the connection. So the point is even if you drop it on the floor like this, it will not go off. So, you know, when the defendant says, You know, I didn't mean it. I didn't think it was going to go off. It was an accident. Bullshit. This will not fire unless you pull the trigger all the way back. Okay, and while we're talking about materials and construction, just to jump back a second. Ooh, look at that. 12 years, still tight lockup. But as long as... one other thing. Sorry, I don't have this written down. One of the reasons I got that is because when my wife bought me this, at the same time I bought... guess what it is? Yep. Marlin 1894C in 357 Magnum. Of course, it shoots 38s as well. This is the deluxe model with the checkered grips. And I also have a Leupold 7.5 to 5 VX3 scope. I actually bought it for an AR-15, but as you've mentioned in your AR videos, when shooting that rifle, people usually want more magnification, and I did, so I went with a bigger scope. But it was perfect for this gun. This gun is accurate to 100 yards with a pistol caliber carbine. This is another review for another time. This is my favorite firearm in the world. This is probably my favorite handgun in the world. Okay, ta-da! Couple things. One thing I forgot to mention. This is an Altamont grip with the Smith & Wesson logo and checkering. I forgot what kind of wood it is. It's a very good fit, but honestly, at the range, the are more comfortable. This is, of course, the Ruger GP100. I bought this when I came back from California last summer. I spent most of the summer at Middlebury Mills College campus in Oakland, California, learning Arabic. I saw this gun up for consignment at the local licensed dealer, and then I looked at it and thought, meh, do I really need another revolver? How can you be a gun enthusiast and complain about Massachusetts gun laws and still be a Democrat? Well, the truth is I'm not against all regulation, and there are a lot of other issues in the world besides gun control, is the short answer. Although I do think New York and California and a few other East Coast states have really gone overboard. This, of course, is the Ruger GP100. This is the blued model. It's I'm not sure how old it is, but it's not new. And as you can see, one thing that's unusual about it is that it has this barrel shroud underlug, and that's it. No other full underlug. And as I said before, I don't like guns that are front heavy. And I've steered away from the 6-inch 686 and the 6-inch GP100 because they're front heavy. I just don't like that. I saw this one, and during the summer I thought, you know, I should have snapped that up because it's going to be gone when I get back to Ohio. And when I get back to Ohio, it was still there. Differences between this and this? Well, for one thing, the trigger, when I got it, the trigger just stunk on ice. Oh my God, how does anybody shoot with a Ruger factory trigger? It was so bad. Now, apparently a lot of people do. I mentioned it on an online forum, and they go, I like the stock trigger. You just have to get used to it. You just have to stage your shots. You just have to control your breathing, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I guess all that's true, but I had a trigger job done, and that helped, but not a lot. So I sent away for the Wolf reduced spring kit, reduced power spring kit, and I put in the lightest ones that came in the kit. brought it to the range, tried it out for reliability. I can say I have not shot any of that cheapo Russian steel case crap, but apart from that, or the aluminum blazers, basically I haven't shot anything Berdand primed. So I haven't tried it on any of those, but everything else I tried it on, it's been 100% reliable with the reduced power trigger. So this is a range-only gun. This is for my two stated purposes for firearms. I mean, this is in the possible fighting gun category, although, like I said, it's really just a range gun. This one is range-only because of the reduced power springs. I don't want to find out in zombie apocalypse time or whatever that, you know what, all I've got is Russian steel-cased ammunition and it's the one thing it won't shoot. But with the reduced power springs, it has a very light trigger. Very light, very good, and single action even more so. Even still, it's still a Ruger trigger, where it's got that, you graph the trigger with the horizontal being the pull, you know, the pull travel, and the vertical being the weight of the pull. So you got this. You know, the Smith & Wesson is kind of like a shallow bell curve. It starts off light, gradually gets heavier, rounds the top a little bit, and then drops off at the break. Whereas with the Ruger, it's more like it's kind of like it starts off with like a backward ski jump where it just climbs up. And of course, if I didn't have the spring kit in, it would climb up a lot higher. And then suddenly breaks. I think that's better. Even with the heavier spring, this shoots better. Colt, I used to have a Colt a long time ago, and I'm afraid I don't have a photo of it. I do somewhere, but it's an actual printed photo. They kind of go like this. Start off a little increase, and then they're kind of flat through the length of travel, and then drop off.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's so you stack them when you get home, or you take the best ones, or
eventually. Now, a word about the construction. You can see this one came with the old style rubber grips with the wooden inserts. I don't care if you can see the serial number. I really don't. It came with black sights, which I painted orange per your advice. I like these grips. I like them better than the Hogue monogrips that are available for the GP100. Now, some people have commented that the GP100 is a lot more durable than the Smith & Wesson L-frame. And this is because of two things. One is certain high-pressure hunting loads state on the cartridge to use only in modern revolvers like Ruger, because they're high-powered and old-fashioned guns might not be able to handle it. When they say Ruger, they mean the single-action Rugers. You can shoot it in a single-action Ruger, but you can't really shoot it in a Cimarron 1873 Cattleman, for example, because those are 19th century replicas. And actually, they're probably a little better than the 19th century guns, but they're still not really meant for 357 Magnum plus pressure. So that's one reason. The other is because the frame itself is so much thicker on the Ruger. And this goes back to what I mentioned earlier about how the Smiths are made out of high-pressure forging, high-temperature forging. I mean, high pressure and high temperature. It is liquid metal, after all. Liquid metal. Ruger, as you probably know, makes most of their stuff out of investment casting. There's nothing wrong with investment casting, but the simple fact is it's not as strong as high-temperature forged steel. So they're thicker because they kind of have to be. Either one of these is very durable, and honestly, I think the Smith is going to be more durable. Let's see, as far as fit and finish goes, well, I mean, you can see that is a tight lockup. You know, compare that to this one, that's also a tight lockup. You know, it's got a kind of a narrow hammer for a 6-inch gun. I'd probably like more of a target hammer, but, you know, it's adequate. Some people, you for example, have complained about having sharp edges on some of its parts. This had that. I mean, you could feel the thing cutting into your thumb when you pulled it off, and now it's fixed. Marlin 1894C with PMC 357 Magnum. So yeah, I sold that Colt Python partly because it was too front heavy, as well as I didn't like the grips, I didn't like the single action trigger, and I didn't like the physical trigger itself. It was very narrow with sharp serrations. I ended up putting a thin rubber tube over it to mitigate that. So, you know, if a gun costs $1,000 and you're not in love with it, then you sell it. And I did, and I got about $1,000 in return. So about a year later, in unfired condition, I see this. Da-da-da! This came in a wooden box that I have around here someplace, and it also came with factory Smith & Wesson target grips, which I also have around here someplace, you know, in walnut. I didn't want to knacker up the grips, and also I just like the rubber grips at the shooting range, so it has rubber grips now. This is the 8 3/8 inch, I'm going to call it 8.4 inches, model 27. It's from the late 1970s, and it had never been shot when I bought it. It's been shot now. I don't buy things to collect, I buy things to use. And yeah, it won't fit in my range bag because it's so long, so I got this thing for it. This is all factory, I mean, except for the grips. So, for all practical purposes, this is a intended purpose, what you would call philosophy of use. This is a target range gun. I bring it with me when I go to the outdoor rifle range, rifle and pistol range. See, here's the problem with living in Ohio. I mean, maybe in southern Ohio you get a lot of open space, but where I live near Akron and Cleveland, you really don't. And if you want to go shooting, you're going to have to pay somebody to use their land. When I've got some distance, I mean, I've got a local indoor range that goes out to 50 feet. And that's fine for most handguns, but it stops being a challenge with this one. I mean, look at that sight radius. Wow! And it's got the factory patridge sights on it, you know, adjustable rear sight, all black, no outlines or anything. You know, this top part it's got like a really fine checkering on it that, you know, reduces glare. I mean, I think the other two revolvers I've showed you have that too. But look at this thing. Here's the push button, the slide button for the cylinder release. Let's just compare that to, hang on, let me make sure the camera's rolling. Yes, it is. So it's got a little bit more real estate for the cylinder release than the modern one. Well, they're both modern, but this is from the late 1970s. This is from 2005. This one has, and because the firing pin is attached to the hammer, I keep it loaded with snap caps. Obviously no locking mechanism in there. But look, here's the snap caps, right? Look at they're countersunk. They fit flush with the cylinder. Here, well, let me borrow some of the snap caps. Here they don't. See, the rim sticks above the cylinder. There's nothing wrong with that, but if I can get them countersunk, I will. Now, as I said, I've done nothing to this trigger. Being kind of a collectible, I wanted to keep it factory original, and I can always stick it in its factory box and stick the wooden grips back on it anytime I want. But the trigger, this is usually for a double action. I shoot them double action. But at this target range, where I'm going for bullseye out to like, 25 yards, I will usually use the single action, and it's got a really wide, again, compare. This is not an F-Sachet, not the same thing. It's a really wide target hammer, which is a lot of real estate for your thumb. Nothing wrong with this one, but this one is better. So there's that. It's got a really wide trigger, and it's serrated. And the serrations are pretty, they're not very deep, so it's not going to cut into your finger the way that Colt is, plus it's so much wider. I mean, look at that. You can really end an F-16 on that trigger. the double action isn't bad. It's a little heavy, very smooth, crisp break. Single action is just phenomenal. It's like, wow, better than mortal man deserves. Here's, and look at the back here. Of course, it's an exposed back strap, and the back has got some, shallow grooves in it to help you maintain traction. The current production one, or at least the '05 production one, does not. I suppose you could have them machined in, but meh, I'm not going to do that. So that is my old school Smith & Wesson revolver, or my, damn, this night's gone less than $600. Can you believe that? I think the 686 was more than that. Well, in '05 it was probably about, not quite $600. They're more than that now. They're like $8 now. Okay. Up next is my other classic Smith & Wesson revolver. 22 rimfire. Again, this came with a Smith & Wesson brand target grip, but I have reason to believe it was not the original grip for the gun. I believe these Model 17s originally came with what was called the combat wooden grip. You know, it basically covered the frame and that was it. And the reason I think so is because, one, the front strap on this has these grooves on it, which means that it was probably intended for those grooves to be exposed. And here's the box it came in. Now, the grip that I got with it wasn't much smaller than this rubber Hogue grip. And don't worry, I'll wipe all these down afterwards. I'm not going to let these get rusty. And it supposedly came in this box. And I don't know how in the name of hell Smith & Wesson fitted in there with those wooden grips and still made it for this box. Well, I did some digging, and if it came, it almost fits with this, but it definitely did not fit with the wooden Smith & Wesson brand target grips. And those are around here somewhere too. Same thing. For target shooting, I mean, every 22 is a range-only gun. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't defend your life with a 22, but you really shouldn't. Not only is it horribly underpowered, not only is it not even a real bullet, it's a conical musket ball is what it is. It's a lead round-nosed blob on top of a percussion case. And they're very economical, and they can be very accurate out to about 100 yards, but not really beyond that. This was a target of opportunity. I walked into the shooting range. I know the guy who owns it. I mean, I'm there at least once a week. I got our membership and stuff. And he says, "Are you interested in secondhand Smith & Wesson Model 17 from the 70s, 22 long rifle? Very well used, but the only way you can really wear out a 22 is by over cleaning it." I mean, I know the previous owner, and there's just no way he over cleaned this. I mean, the barrel was okay when I first bought it, but it still needed some cleaning. When I first went to clean these chambers, oh my God. It was, I don't know if I was cleaning a gun or shoveling out a coal mine. They were just so filthy. This replaces a Smith & Wesson 617 6-inch 6-shot. But the 617 has a full underlug. Excellent shooter, by the way, but full underlug. And one reason I went with the 6 when I saw it, I bought that on consignment maybe eight years ago. I've only been shooting since '04, and I'm 49 years old now, so. One thing I like about the 6-shot, look at those timing cams. See, they're timing cams. There's a good chunk of metal for each spot. Huna. Wa huna. Wa huna. That means here and here and here in Arabic. Contact light. Engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. We've landed on somebody's desk. I mean, what's going on with that?